Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate the opportunity just to share with you my journey of being a maker, a creator, a ceramicist. So I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy this presentation. My name is Martin Harmon. I am an artist based in North Somerset, and that's where that's where I make everything. My creative journey, it really just started at school, really, because I was introduced to art when I started at school. So I was introduced to fine art, and I was just really drawn to using my hands to create things. And that's what I just naturally kind of gravitated to, because other subjects like maths, science, those kind of subjects, even though today I still have that kind of fascination with aspects of science, but it wasn't something that I gravitated to. It wasn't something that I was really interested, and it didn't have that flair with me. So I naturally just went to gravitated to things that I was good at, and that was art. And back at school, we were also lucky to have a ceramics department, which I know now is not as common as it used to be, because there was a lot of ceramics departments that unfortunately closed down in schools. So that was pretty lucky. And then from there, I decided to pursue arts further into a degree to be a three-dimensional design ceramics in Farnham at the UCA, and that was pretty eye-opening, because it was a university just dedicated for creativity. It had everything there from glass blowing, ceramics, animation. So it was really just focused on creative activities. So I did my BE there, and then afterwards I went on to pursue ceramics further, as this was something that I really kind of got interested in, and then went to Cardiff and did my MA in ceramics at Cardiff School of Art and Design from 2010 to 2012. And yeah, it was just ceramics that I was really kind of drawn into, and so you might know me as the creator of Bubbleware, tableware, which is that's quite a funny name. So it's myself and my wife. We do markets around like Yatton, around North Somerset. You might have seen me at the local market, and I've actually brought some of my tableware to this event as well. So these are some of the pieces that I take to markets, and so that's probably where you might kind of like know me from if you've seen my work around. And but this the tableware is like, I'd say it's like kind of part of my kind of art merchandise, because it relates to the other work that I create that I'll show you in a minute. Yeah, so ceramics was really, a key kind of exploration for me. It was just something that I was really drawn to, and I've been working with clay ever since. That's when she's there, she helps me at the markets. That's from the Yatton market, and that's an example of throwing these pieces on the wheel. We like to have fun with our work that we put out there, and these are kind of like some examples of my tableware, like spoon rests, and jugs, and soup dishes, which you can see on this table. So why do I create art? This is really like fascinating thing. I often come back to this as a maker, because I think what I've realised is that art gives me purpose, it gives me meaning, it gives me fulfilment in life, and that's why I pursue it. Whether that's through the creation of my tableware and other things that I do, because I also make things like ceramic sculpture, paintings, print accessories. I do all sorts of things, and so it really just allows me to step back and just breathe in the beauty of exploration and self-discovery. Being on this journey is that it really opens up my eyes to new possibilities, new ways of working, and it gets me thinking, and that's why. And that's why I'm on this journey. And so what inspires me then? So it's places like Stonehenge, stone monuments, stone circles here in the UK. And I don't know if you guys have ever been to Stonehenge. Maybe you have, and you've seen those stone circle. There's also other ones. There's Avery, which is a larger monument, and yeah, it really opened up my eyes, because it got me thinking about life. It got me thinking about beliefs, spirituality, whether you call that religion, or time, space, the nature of reality that we live in. And so they really kind of brought to question all these kind of things, and that's so there's places like that gets me thinking. And this is some pictures just to highlight more of this monument. This, I don't know if you guys know, but Stonehenge has been rebuilt quite a few times through history. So that's an example of just rebuilding Stonehenge to preserve its its kind of integrity, and so that's quite interesting. Just diving into some of the kind of history books there. But it's places, like mystery, curiosity, time, space, construction, ways of seeing, human experience, and those kind of ideas that kind of get me thinking. And so I shift these ideas into the making of my ceramic sculptures. The tableware, actually, the process comes from the sculpture, because the sculptures that I make, they start on the potter's wheel. So I throw things like cylinders, spheres, cones, I'll then cut up and join together to create these constructions, just like looking at Stonehenge and stone circles. They're all individual stones come together to create this kind of construction. So that's where this whole kind of like cutting and joining comes from. So yeah, they all start from these kind of individual components, and I shift and I try and convey like aspects of geometry and architecture and nature, and inside and outside space into the work. And so these are examples of my ceramic sculpture. So these are two standalone sculptures. Yeah, and it's, I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to really reveal like the construction of the pieces through the individual components. And I'm trying to use things like line and colour and pattern to break up the form and the space, and to draw the eye to look like inside the space, inside of the sculpture and outside of the sculpture, so they become very surreal. And just like when you're looking at, because that's what I noticed about looking at Stonehenge and stone circles here in the UK, is that you bring your own interpretation, your own imagination to those places. And I find this is really fascinating, because there's not a lot of places that do that. Usually when you're walking, you're out on your travels and you see a building, you go, okay, that's a house. That's an office block. You can kind of see that function. But what I like about stone circles and Stonehenge is that it kind of leaves space for you to bring your own imagination, your own interpretation to it. So that's why I create sculptures that are also very abstract, they're very surreal. So you can also bring your own interpretation to it. And these are examples of wall sculptures that you can hang on the wall, because generally people think, oh, sculpture, I need to put it down on a table or on a plinth. But I was thinking, well, what happens when you take sculpture and you place it on the wall? It becomes something different, something. It takes on a kind of new meaning and a new way of seeing. And so I, with the same kind of process of cutting and joining, using the potter's wheel, same process that I used to create the tableware, is just attaching those pieces to these frames. So they almost look like paintings So that's quite it's quite comical. It's you're kind of looking at them thinking, "Oh, is this like sculpture? Is this painting?" And so yeah, I thought that was really interesting putting it on these frames. And you're kind of left wondering, what's going on here, you know? And so it's I like to play around with different kind of perspectives. I like to work in series, so I'll make a series of standalone sculptures, or I'll make a series of wall sculptures, and these are just further explorations within that series of these forms that are all closed because you can't see inside, whereas the other ones, they have the space that you could enter and move around in, whereas these are more kind of contained. So there's just different ways of exploring that I explore through my work. Yeah, there's often things like patterns and geometrics and line, grading colours, like working its way in to create these surreal kind of objects. And another thing that I forgot to mention that I also do is I use, because I often use glaze, which is it's just a glass that there's fused onto the surface. But with some of the open sculptures, I'll have like a glaze on the outside, and on the inside it's matte, so it's unglazed. And that's just another way of like reflecting light and absorbing light, because I found out with ceramics, with glaze can tend to bounce the light off, whereas like a black matte surface can absorb the light. So that's another thing that I kind of experiment with in my work, is how the light kind of interacts with the pieces. Sculpture on the right, the spherical form, that's unglazed, so it's almost like the light gets absorbed, but then the round dotted form is glazed, so the light kind of bounces off. So that's another thing I like about working with clay, is that you can harness those materials to create some interesting effects. I also create paintings, so not only am I creating sculpture, but I also create paintings as well that also relate back to my kind of central theme of inspiration, looking at Stonehenge and stone circles, and thinking about those ideas. So it all kind of ties together. So things like construction and geometrics, space, belief, and the world around me, society, that all kind of gets me thinking. Because I'm very kind of as an artist, and I know some artists are also in this room as well. As artists, we're very kind of observant people. We're very kind of sensitive. At least for me, anyway. That's what I can kind of speak from my own experience. So I'm often can observe the world around me, and those things can work its way into my artworks. So these are examples of my paintings. So this one's called Timescape. This one's made from barcodes, because I don't know if you know, we live in a world where barcodes are everywhere. It's at the center of commerce, and the way humans have constructed this world that we live in. And I just thought it's really interesting because it's everywhere, and it got me thinking, barcodes can, some people might say barcodes seem quite sinister. They're storing data, and maybe people's data, who knows, but so that's one angle of looking at it. But then the other angle of looking at it is it's helping to organize this kind of world. And so I thought it's interesting to fuse that into this painting, and then bring in those geometrics, and then there's kind of this white space as well. So it's almost that's another what's another theme that runs in the work, is this kind of a space that you enter, almost like signifying like a crossing over or like a kind of belief. And then this painting on this side is another kind of exploration of that without the barcodes. But it's another multimedia painting using newspaper from the back on the background, and these kind of geometrics kind of working its way in, and so they look very kind of otherworldly and within my paintings, so often multimedia. And this is another one within this kind of barcode kind of theme. And I think this is really interesting now as we have like the rise of like AI and all these kind of technologies that are starting to kind of get more intertwined with like people's lives, and and it really got me thinking about where the future is heading, and where things are kind of like progressing, and that's so looking at things that are happening in the world, works its way into the work. And then this is a series of postcard paintings that I created in Istanbul. I just did a residency out there, and it was like a fascinating place because I'd never been to Istanbul, and I don't know if you guys have been to Istanbul. There's a lot of mosques there, there's a lot of old buildings, there's a lot of kind of history there. So I created a series of 12 postcard paintings just responding to my travels there. It's called this project Memories of Istanbul, because I don't know if you know, but I don't know if you maybe had a similar experience, but maybe you've looked back at your memories and you thought, oh, which part of my memory is real, and then which part of my memory is like part like imagined. And so I thought I'd kind of like throw these kind of ideas into this. So they're based on real places. Like this is the Yeni Mosque. I kind of fused it with my own geometrics and style that I often use within my work. And then this is of a guard who was guarding the Yeni Mosque, a statue, and I just like but again just reinterpreted it. Same with this one. This one looks like this kind of mysterious structure. It looks a bit like a UFO, which was fascinating because it was this tower that I saw on the seafront. I think it was something to do with like shipping, like had like some kind of radar on there, something to do with shipping or something. Because there's a lot of boats that come in and out, like a lot of trade boats coming in and out of that area. So maybe it's something to do with that. But it's just quite interesting because I just took these locations and painted them and reinterpreted them into these creations. And then I used black and white to also comment upon that aspect of memory. How we often look, you might see black and white photographs, and that's another way of maybe symbolising that kind of memory, like how we look at photographs and think. So that's these ideas that kind of like feeding into these postcards. But you can see the whole collection on my website if you like. More than welcome to see that. Because there's 12 in total. And then we also create our merchandise range. That's a picture of when she's wearing a robin bird bag that I created from one of my artworks, and I think a picture was taken at Bristol Museum. We have a big ceramic collection now. I don't know if you guys have seen it. So we make our, obviously we have our merchandise, for things like the tableware that we often take to markets. We've got our clothing range, like socks and this bird bag. With the merchandise, I like to take my artworks and then redesign them to create images on print accessories and that people can wear. And so they're quite stylish and I think they're quite fashionable and quite unique really. It's like its own artwork in itself. These are a pair of socks that myself and my wife created. We did a joint project. We took our artwork, so I took my mushroom-looking wall sculpture, which is a bit similar to like this kind of piece. It's more kind of like spherical. And then Wenshi's ceramic artwork of a Taiwanese bear, which are indigenous to Taiwan. These two images together to create this like harmonious design. So it's an embroidered image on these cotton socks, and they feel really soft. And we've actually got some examples here, so you're more than welcome to have a look if you want. But yeah, so it's fascinating, you know, just being on this journey and creating like all sorts of things. And I've learned a lot in the process. I've had to learn everything myself, from making sculpture, paintings, tableware. Although I have had experience of like working within like pottery industry, which is also like fed into my work and given me kind of skills in that kind of area. But then there's been a lot of things like these socks. Had to learn this by myself and Wenshi. But we contacted a factory out in Taiwan, and we gave them the design and negotiating like how this design should look, and what kind of fabric of the socks we should use, and all those kind of other things like people wouldn't generally see, all the things that kind of go on behind the scenes. And so that's been really interesting to learn. And then these are some of examples of my work. So I was lucky in 2014 to win an award at the Royal West of England Academy in Bristol, and they purchased this sculpture for a members collection. And then there's other examples of my ceramic sculpture in various museums, like the Museum of the Inga Ceramics Museum in Taiwan, the National Museum of Slovenia. So I like to get my work out into different kind of like spaces. Like, so as an artist, I like to, I show my work in the UK. I like to show my work outside of the UK, and because I realise people see things, they work differently, and they see things in different ways. So it's quite interesting because I found out everyone has their own like tastes and appreciation and thoughts about what art is or what it can be. So I like getting my work out into different countries for that reason. And then, and on top of that, we also host like our own exhibitions. So we put on events. So this one was called Land of Curiosity at Ours. It was a self-curated exhibition. Myself and my wife, when she hosted in 2022, a gallery there where we displayed things like paintings and sculptures. So we often create our own exhibitions. We'll hire out spaces to do that, or like previously, participate in open exhibitions that you can apply for. And then this ceramic sculptures at a company next to the Millennium Dome, also known as O2. That's at a accounting firm. So again, it's just, I thought I'd include that in there because it's just another way of showcasing the work outside of the studio in other spaces. So it's just really fascinating to see them in other spaces and how they interact with the interior. So that was pretty interesting. And then on top of that, I like to apply for things like artist residencies and symposiums. These are kind of like cultural activities that artists can get involved in. So this one was from a residency called the International Ceramic Symposium in held in Germany in 2018. And it's just an opportunity for like artists to come out there. What usually happens is, like for this one, I came out there. I was invited to go out there for 1 month, create a series of ceramic artworks. During that, with other artists who'd be like sharing ideas, sharing processes, engaging with the public through artist talks, demonstrations. Yeah, it's a real kind of. I don't really come across many symposiums in the UK. They seem to be more popular in like Europe, but there might be some, but I haven't come across too many. So that's really fascinating as well, because that just really opens up my mind to new kind of possibilities and ways of working. And like in Germany, they got their own, style of working. I remember when I was there, it was very regimented, and it was like, okay, we've got to be here, 8 o'clock sharp, and now we're gonna like go off and go to lunch at this time, and then we're gonna come back to the studio at this time and get back to work. And so it was, it was interesting, like an interesting like working pattern. I think that's also what I find it interesting about doing these kind of things like symposiums, is that every country has their own kind of working style, and they also have their own materials and just their own way of like looking at art, and like and their own art style as well. So that's also really kind of fascinating, because that gets me thinking as well about different ways of working and new ideas. And then the picture on the right is an example of a ceramic wall sculpture, which is quite similar to this. It's a different colour. This one's in red, this one's in blue, and that's at a hotel in Taipei. So again, it's fascinating to see how art can like transform and kind of interact with a new space. So like when you think about art, you think, okay, art gallery, I see art. I go to a museum and see art, or maybe I can see art at like someone's home. But it's also interesting to also think about I can see art at a hotel, and that also creates a new way of like engaging with that space. Yeah, I just like to get my work out there in like different spaces. And then these are just press examples. So I've had my ceramics seen in magazines like Ceramics Island in 2019, The World of Interiors, that's an interior design kind of magazine, and the sculpture there is just on the top right. It's the yellow kind of dotted piece. And then these are just more examples of my artworks in people's homes, and it's just quite interesting seeing like what people think of them and how they kind of interact with them, and what they say. Like this person saying, bright colours and perfect work, but no bubbles, because it's because I think I called that piece, like I gave it like a funny title, like Bubble something, because it looked quite bubbly. And maybe she thought like I was expecting to see like bubbles in your works, because I like to just give the pieces just funny names sometimes, because they are quite comical and quite funny. Yeah, so it's quite interesting seeing like how people put them in the home, and how what they kind of think about them. But yeah, so I mean, to wrap things up, really, I mean, I think creating art is just what it means to be human for me, and I just create art because I want to create new experiences and put that into the world. As humans, we have you've got a brain, you've got hands, we can do so many things, and I think I just really want to kind of like tap into that to create stuff, and I think I just also always kind of naturally drawn to creating physical objects or tangible objects. And yeah, it's just really about just liberating people's imagination, really, just creating a gateway for people to be immersed in the art and just create their own imagination and their own meaning from it. Yeah, so just thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it and it's got you thinking in some way. Yeah, but feel free to ask any.
Can I ask a couple of questions? I did a bit of ceramics myself, having done art in college. What base material do you prefer working with? Which clay are you most comfortable using? You've got some stoneware.
Stoneware, yeah, it is generally stoneware, because what I like about stoneware is that it's a very kind of durable material. It's a very strong material and water resistant, and it holds itself well when I'm using it on potter's wheel to throw things like spheres, cones that kind of can join together to create these sculptures. So you can really kind of do a lot of work with it, and that's what I find that's really useful about it. And I also use it for my tableware as well, because you can get other clays. You can get.
Do you use semi-porcelain or porcelain? Because I used to love working with semi-porcelain, because you can get some spiky effects from it, and you can also mix in other things with it, like glass and so on, after the first firing.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you can get those glass shards.
Yeah.
And then you kind of you can sprinkle them inside like a contained ceramic object, and then you get a pool of glass, because obviously it's glass and it just kind of melts into this kind of pool. But yeah, I've never tried that process, but I've seen other people use it before. Yeah.
Because it does lend itself to sculptural forms, I think, the semi-porcelain. That's my sort of, without playing around.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it can do. Yeah, because I think different clays have different qualities.
Yeah.
So with porcelain, it's quite a translucent clay. So it's so it's quite good for some people. Can use it as they can make sculptural lamps. Have a sculpture and they put some lighting inside, because then the light would penetrate the ceramic surface. So that's one good thing about porcelain, and also the colour of its clay, because it is pure white, and that also makes it attractive to apply vivid colours. So you can get some really vivid colours with porcelain. Yeah, and then obviously you've got stoneware, which I use, and I think with stoneware you can also get very deep colours as well, and that's another reason why I use it, because you can get that depth of colour with different glazes. And with the sculptures, I actually I spray on colours, like spray paints. It's a bit like that. They're called vitreous slips, but all it is a liquid clay with a pigment inside, like a stain, like a paint, and you spray it onto the surface. And so that's why, so you can get these kind of painterly type features. And so that's what I often use for the sculptures. And then the tableware are kind of coloured glazes, and they're applied onto matte glazes, so you get different kind of textures on there, which is pretty interesting. So yeah, there's so many different types of clays. Yeah, but stoneware is what I kind of choose to use. And although
did you use stoneware for your sculptures? Because that almost looked to me to be smoother, sort of.
Yeah. So all of the majority of the sculptures I make, it's all made from stoneware. So I mainly use that material. Although I have used porcelain to create some other pieces, because of the just different effects you can get with it. But it's mainly stoneware. Yeah. And I was going to give you for the questions. I did actually bring some gifts. So I will give you a gift there. So surprise gift. There's one for you, and there's one for you there. But I actually have one more gift left. So if anyone wants to jump in and ask a question.
Okay, we just wanted to ask about your glazes. How do you make the glazes, or do you buy them? Or how do you...
How do I make the glazes?
What sort of glazes do you use?
It's usually clear glaze. So for the sculptures, I use mainly clear glazes because I want to highlight like the patterns and the painted surface, and I want to.
So the painted.
Yeah. So